So there's this thing that costs more than some people's cars, has been almost done since Obama's second term, and somehow convinced grown adults to spend mortgage payments on virtual spaceships that don't exist yet. And before you click away thinking this is another defense piece or hit job, it's neither. This is about what happens when you actually ignore the noise and just try the damn thing. Spoiler. It's weirder than both sides want to admit. Look, for years the entire internet has been screaming two completely opposite things about this project. One side's convinced it's the greatest scam in gaming history, digital snake oil sold to people with too much disposable income and not enough critical thinking. The other side acts like they're funding the second coming of gaming Jesus, defending every delay like their life depends on it. And somewhere in the middle of this screaming match, there's this actual thing you can download and play right now. 45 bucks. Same price as that game you bought last month, played for 6 hours and never touched again. Except this one's going to make you feel things you forgot games could make you feel. Not because it's polished, it absolutely isn't, but because it's different in ways that matter more than you'd think. The official description calls it a massively multiplayer space simulation in persistent development since 2012, which is technically accurate and completely useless for understanding what you're actually getting into. Better way to think about it. Imagine if someone took every space game fantasy you had as a kid, removed all the guardrails that make games accessible, added physics that actually matter, then broke half of it and said, figure it out yourself. There's no quest markers holding your hand. No carefully balanced progression system designed by psychologists to keep you logging in. No algorithm deciding when you get your dopamine hit. Most people think the controversy is about the money or the delays or the feature creep. That's surface level drama. The real thing nobody talks about is how the supposed problems, the incompleteness, the jank, the steep learning curve, are accidentally creating something most finished games can't touch. Because when a game doesn't respect your time or coddle your experience, when it just exists as this indifferent universe that doesn't care if you succeed or fail, something strange happens. You start actually playing again instead of just consuming content. The reputation has become this self-perpetuating monster that's completely divorced from the actual experience. You've got YouTube videos with millions of views explaining why it's a scam, Reddit threads that read like support groups for people escaping a cult, Twitter dunking on every delay like it's a sport. And all of that has calcified into this accepted truth that the whole thing is just an expensive joke for suckers, which makes sense if you've never actually tried it. The marketing doesn't help. They show these pristine trailers of seamless gameplay that looks nothing like the buggy reality. So expectations are set for this polished experience, and what you get is not that. But here's the thing nobody mentions in those hit pieces. Download it expecting a complete disaster. Tutorial bugs out immediately, which it probably will. Character gets stuck in geometry. Menus look like they were designed by someone who hates users. You're about ready to request that refund when you hear something. Voices, not NPC barks or scripted dialogue, just actual humans talking nearby about something completely mundane. So you walk over, interrupt their conversation with something like, does this game ever actually work, or is it always like this? And instead of telling you to figure it out yourself, or ignoring you completely, they laugh. Then they help. They explain the 17 counterintuitive steps to do basic things, warn you about which bugs are avoidable and which ones you just have to accept. Then someone just casually drops 1,000,000 credits in your account like it's pocket change and invites you to tag along on whatever they're doing. Next thing you know, you're standing in the hangar of this massive warship, a hammerhead, which means nothing to you yet but sounds cool, loading up for something. You fly into space, warp to another system using technology you don't understand, and immediately run into another crew. Actual players, not NPCs. Turns into this full-scale space battle with lasers everywhere, shields failing, people yelling call-outs you don't understand, and you're just sprinting through corridors trying not to get in the way while simultaneously trying to figure out what half these buttons do. It feels like you accidentally stumbled onto the set of a Star Wars movie, except nobody's acting and everything's going wrong in the best possible way. And you realize this isn't a game in the traditional sense. It's something else entirely. Still broken, still laggy, still confusing as hell. But for the first time in years, you're not following a quest marker or grinding a battle pass. You're just experiencing something genuinely unpredictable. Now, depending on your personality, that story either sounds incredible or exhausting. Both reactions are completely valid. The question worth asking yourself, when did games stop surprising you? Not impressing you with graphics or budget or scope. Actually surprising you with something you didn't see coming. Because most modern games are designed to be predictable. Their products engineered to deliver specific experiences at specific intervals. Which is fine, but it's also why everything feels the same. If you're tired of knowing exactly what's going to happen the moment you boot up, if you miss that feeling of genuine discovery, then maybe the chaos is actually the feature, not the bug. The other thing that makes this different, you're not special here, and that's weirdly refreshing. Every other game wants you to feel like the chosen one, the hero. the main character around which the entire universe revolves. Even multiplayer games design systems to make each player feel uniquely important. But in this universe, you're just a person in a place, one of thousands. The game doesn't care about your feelings or your fun. It just exists, and you figure out how to navigate it. Picture this. You're doing a basic cargo run in an Aurora, the absolute starter ship, nothing fancy, when you get a distress call. Some player crashed and is stranded on a moon somewhere. You could ignore it. The game doesn't reward you for helping. No achievement, no XP, no quest completion notification. Just a person asking for help in chat. But you fly out there anyway because why not? And when you find them, you both spend 20 minutes trying to figure out how to get them into your ship without them glitching through the floor, which happens twice. You're both laughing about how broken everything is while also problem solving in real time. Finally get them to a station and they're so grateful they share coordinates to this hidden mining spot they'd found. That information ends up making you more credits than any official mission that week. But the money isn't the point. The point is it felt real, like a genuine interaction between two people solving a problem together, not two players grinding through content designed by a committee. That's what presence over power fantasy means. You're not conquering the universe or saving it or becoming the most powerful whatever. You're inhabiting it, being small in something vast. And somehow that feels more meaningful than being artificially important in something designed entirely around you. There's this moment that happens to most people who stick with it. You're doing something mundane, maybe a bunker mission, simple combat scenario against NPCs, and another player shows up, lands their ship near yours, gets out, doesn't say anything, just starts following you. Immediate paranoia kicks in. Is this a pirate about to get robbed? You reach the entrance and turn around, ready for confrontation, and they just wave. Then type in chat, first time doing these. Mind if I watch? So you clear it together, and afterward you both end up sitting on this ridge watching the sunset on some moon, Yella or Kellen or one of the others, just talking about completely normal stuff. Where you're from, what games you usually play, why you both took a chance on this mess. Turns out they're playing from halfway across the world on terrible ping, but they don't care because nothing else feels like this. You add each other, run missions together for weeks. The game's brokenness somehow creates these spaces for human connection that polished experiences don't allow. When everything works perfectly, you don't need other people. When everything's held together with duct tape and hope, suddenly cooperation matters. The development drama everyone obsesses over is completely missing what's actually happening. Yes, it's been 12 years. Yes, the scope expanded beyond the original Kickstarter pitch, like a balloon someone forgot to tie off. Yes, some ships cost more than used cars, which is objectively insane. But while everyone's arguing about whether it's a scam or the future of gaming, the actual developers are building technology that doesn't exist anywhere else in the industry. Server meshing that's supposed to allow thousands of players in a single persistent universe. Physicalized damage that tracks individual components instead of just health bars. Flight models that account for actual thruster placement and mass distribution and atmospheric density. This isn't just making a game. It's R&D for systems that will eventually show up in other games, whether this one ever releases or not. For players right now, today, this translates to possibilities that sound like science fiction. Board someone's ship mid-quantum travel, sabotage their power plant, escape before they realize what happened. Run a legitimate cargo business where supply and demand actually matter and aren't just fake numbers. Explore procedurally generated caves that seamlessly connect to handcrafted underground facilities without a single loading screen. Crash your ship, survive the impact, then spend an hour hiking across a planet to reach a settlement while your oxygen slowly depletes. These aren't scripted moments or carefully designed set pieces. They're just things that can happen because the systems exist and interact. The practical reality: stop waiting for release. That's not how this works anymore. The old model of game gets finished, then you buy it, doesn't apply here. It's more like early access, except it's been early access for over a decade, which breaks people's brains. But if you can get past that mental block, there's this entire playable universe right now. Buggy, incomplete, frustrating, but also capable of moments that remind you why you fell in love with games before they became services designed to extract maximum engagement metrics. The community is split between people who treat it like a religious experience and people who treat it like a crime scene. Spectrum forums constantly debate whether the latest patch is revolutionary or broken. Usually it's both simultaneously. Reddit oscillates between stunning screenshot galleries and multi-paragraph dissertations about netcode problems. But actually playing? Most people in-game are just normal, helpful even. There's this whole subset of players called space dads who own massive ships and just want crew members to talk to while they haul cargo for hours. The community has created its own emergent content: racing leagues, rescue organizations, player-run news networks covering in-game events like they're real news. It's weird and chaotic and somehow functional despite itself. If you're actually going to try this, here's what works. Wait for a free fly event. They happen a few times a year, usually around major ship showcases. Download it during the event, but give yourself time because it's a massive install and the servers get hammered. When you first spawn, don't try to figure everything out alone. Use global chat. Say something like, "New player, completely lost. Anyone willing to explain why my character is T-posing through the floor?" You'll get responses. Multiple people will offer help because the community knows the new player experience is terrible, and they've internalized that it's their job to fix it, not the developers. Accept that you'll die to bugs. Ships will randomly explode. Elevators will become death traps. Quantum travel will sometimes just not work. That's part of it. But also accept that you'll have moments, random, unexpected moments, that feel more alive than anything in your carefully curated Steam library. Start with simple missions, delivery contracts, basic combat scenarios, maybe some mining if you're patient. Don't buy anything with real money beyond the basic package. Everything can be earned in-game, and honestly, it's more satisfying that way. The sense of progression when you finally earn enough to upgrade from your starter ship to something with an actual bed and cargo space hits different than just swiping a credit card. Most importantly, let go of the need for it to be finished. Engage with what's there, not what's promised. The roadmap is a bingo card of features that may or may not arrive when predicted. Doesn't matter. What matters is whether the current experience is worth your time and money. For some people, it absolutely isn't. They need structure, clear goals, systems that work consistently. Totally fair. For others, the unpredictability is exactly what they've been missing. Quick thing before we keep going. If you've made it this far and you're thinking, okay, this is actually interesting, or even, this guy's completely wrong, but I'm curious where this goes, that little subscribe button does something useful. Not for the algorithm or the metrics or whatever, but because there's more to talk about here. The specific gameplay loops that actually work right now versus the ones that are completely broken, how the economy functions, why the flight model makes some people motion sick, whether the single-player campaign will ever exist, all the nuanced stuff that doesn't fit in hot takes or meme videos. So if that sounds worth your time, subscribe. If not, that's fine too. Let's keep going. The thing about modern games is they've become really good at wasting your time efficiently. They respect your schedule by giving you daily login bonuses and weekly challenges and battle passes that expire. They've optimized the dopamine drip to keep you coming back without actually giving you anything meaningful. It's all very scientific and very hollow. You log in, do your dailies, feel like you accomplished something, log out. Repeat until you realize you haven't actually enjoyed yourself in weeks, but you can't stop because of sunk cost and FOMO. This doesn't do any of that. There's no daily login bonus, no battle pass, no weekly challenges designed by behavioral psychologists. The game doesn't beg you to come back. It just exists, indifferent to whether you play or not. Which means when you do log in, it's because you actually want to, not because you're afraid of missing a limited time cosmetic. And that changes the entire dynamic. You're not chasing carrots on sticks, you're just doing things. Maybe you spend 3 hours mining rocks on an asteroid because the process is weirdly meditative. Maybe you join a random crew doing bounty hunting and end up in a 2-hour conversation about nothing important. Maybe you try to land on a planet and crash spectacularly and spend the next hour trying to recover your cargo on foot. None of it is optimized. None of it is designed to maximize your engagement. It's just systems interacting with other systems, and you're navigating through them. Sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's transcendent, but it's never manipulative. The game isn't trying to trick you into playing more. It's just there. Take it or leave it. And after years of games that feel like they're constantly selling you something, your time, your attention, your money, that honesty is refreshing even when the experience itself is broken. The economics of the whole thing are worth understanding because they explain a lot of the controversy. Traditional game development works like this. Studio gets funding from publisher, makes game, releases game, sells copies, maybe adds DLC, moves on to next project. Clean, simple, proven model. This threw that out completely. Crowdfunded initially, which meant no publisher controlling creative decisions. But crowdfunding doesn't provide enough money for a project this ambitious, so they started selling ships. Digital spaceships, some of which cost hundreds or thousands of dollars, which sounds absolutely insane until you understand what's actually happening. Those ship sales fund development. Not just the game itself, but the underlying technology that doesn't exist anywhere else. They're not just building a game, they're building an engine. Networking infrastructure, procedural generation tools, physics systems, AI frameworks, all of it custom because nothing off the shelf can do what they're trying to do. That's expensive, really expensive, so they keep selling ships to keep funding development, which creates this weird cycle where the game never needs to release in the traditional sense because it's already generating revenue. Is it sustainable? Nobody knows. Is it ethical to charge $1,000 for a digital ship? That's a philosophical question with no clear answer. But here's what's undeniable. You don't need to spend that money. The starter package is $45. Everything else can be earned in-game. The people buying those expensive ships are either collectors who treat it like any other expensive hobby, or they're essentially patrons funding development because they believe in the vision. Neither group is being scammed. They know exactly what they're buying and they're making informed decisions with their own money. The controversy comes from people who don't play treating those ship prices as if they're required purchases, which they're not. It's like seeing someone buy a $1,000 supporter pack for a free-to-play game and declaring the entire game is a scam. Doesn't make sense if you think about it for more than 5 seconds, but it makes great outrage content. The bugs deserve their own section because they're simultaneously the worst and best part of the experience. Worst because they're genuinely frustrating. Lose hours of progress because the server crashed. Watch your ship explode for no reason. Get stuck in geometry and have to respawn. These aren't occasional glitches. They're constant companions. Every session will have multiple bugs, some minor, some game-breaking. You learn to save often, to not get too attached to any particular run, to laugh when things go wrong because getting angry just makes it worse. But they're also the best part because they create stories. The time your ship's landing gear deployed inside a space station and launched you into orbit. The time you and 3 other players got stuck in an elevator and had to coordinate a rescue operation. The time quantum travel glitched and you ended up inside a planet, falling through geometry while your crew screamed on voice chat. These moments are hilarious in retrospect and sometimes even in the moment. They're shared experiences that bond the community together. Everyone has bug stories. They're like war stories, except the war is against the game itself. And here's the weird part. The bugs make success feel earned. When you complete a difficult mission despite the game actively fighting you, it feels like a genuine accomplishment. Not because the mission was well designed or challenging in the intended way, but because you overcame both the intended challenge and the unintended chaos. It's like playing Dark Souls, except the difficulty isn't carefully calibrated. It's just random and broken, which shouldn't work, but somehow does. The developers are constantly fixing bugs, but they're also constantly adding new features that introduce new bugs. It's this endless cycle that would be maddening if you approached it like a traditional game. But if you approach it like an ongoing experiment that you're participating in, it becomes almost charming. You're not playing a finished product, you're helping stress test systems that will eventually be refined. That's not everyone's idea of fun, but for some people it's exactly what they want. The learning curve is genuinely brutal and there's no point pretending otherwise. Most games have tutorials that hold your hand through every mechanic, introducing complexity gradually until you're comfortable. This has a tutorial that bugs out half the time, and even when it works, it only teaches you the absolute basics. Everything else you have to figure out through trial and error, community guides, or asking other players. The control scheme alone has dozens of keybinds. The UI is counterintuitive. The mechanics interact in ways that aren't explained anywhere. You'll spend your first several hours just figuring out how to do basic things, how to request landing permission, how to refuel, how to claim your ship when it gets destroyed, how to navigate quantum travel, how to manage your inventory. Each of these is a small puzzle with no clear solution provided by the game itself. It's like being dropped in a foreign country where you don't speak the language and everyone expects you to just figure it out. But that difficulty creates investment. When you finally understand how everything works, you feel like you've actually learned something valuable, not just memorized a skill rotation or optimal build, but genuinely mastered a complex system. And because the game doesn't hold your hand, discovering things on your own feels meaningful. Finding a shortcut, figuring out an efficient route, learning how to avoid common bugs, these become actual skills you develop, not just information the game feeds you. The community has created extensive guides and tutorials because they know the in-game resources are inadequate. YouTube channels dedicated to explaining mechanics, Reddit wikis with detailed information, Discord servers where veterans answer questions from new players. The game itself might not teach you, but the community will. You just have to be willing to ask for help and accept that you're going to feel stupid for a while. Everyone did. That's part of the initiation. The scope of what's planned versus what exists creates this constant tension between potential and reality. The roadmap shows features that sound incredible. Dynamic server meshing, full persistence, base building, engineering gameplay, medical gameplay, exploration mechanics, farming, passenger transport, data running. Some of this exists in basic forms. Most of it doesn't. And every patch adds some features while breaking others, creating this 2 steps forward, 1 step back progression that tests patience. You have to decide whether you're buying what exists now or what might exist eventually. If you're buying the current experience, you need to accept that it's incomplete and always will be in some sense. If you're buying the potential, you need to accept that some promised features might never arrive or might arrive completely different from how they were originally described. Neither approach is wrong, but mixing them up leads to disappointment. The people who seem happiest with the game are the ones who treat it like an ongoing experience rather than a product to be completed. They log in when new patches drop, explore the new content, then take breaks when they've exhausted what's interesting. They don't feel obligated to play constantly. They don't treat it like a live service that demands daily engagement. They just check in periodically, see what's new, have some experiences, then move on until the next update. That's probably the healthiest way to approach it. The people who seem most frustrated are the ones who backed years ago expecting a finished game by now and feel betrayed by the extended development. That frustration is completely valid. The original timeline was wildly optimistic and the scope expansion happened without clear communication. But holding on to that frustration while continuing to follow the project just creates misery. Either accept what it is now or walk away and check back in a few years. Staying engaged while being angry helps nobody. The social dynamics are unlike any other multiplayer game because there's no matchmaking, no teams, no formal structure. You just exist in the same space as other players and decide how to interact. Some people are friendly, some are pirates, some are role players, some just want to be left alone. And because there's no clear delineation between PvE and PvP zones, every encounter has this tension where you're not sure what's going to happen. You land at a mining outpost and see another player's ship. Are they friendly? Are they going to shoot you? Do they even care you're there? You have to make decisions based on incomplete information. Just like real life, most of the time nothing happens. They're doing their own thing and you do yours. But sometimes you end up in a conversation, or a firefight, or a spontaneous cooperation where you both realize you're doing the same mission and decide to team up. The lack of structure means the community creates its own. Organizations form around specific gameplay styles. Mining corps, bounty hunting groups, pirate crews, rescue operations, racing teams. Some are serious with ranks and schedules and requirements. Others are just casual groups of friends who play together sometimes. You can join multiple organizations or none. The game doesn't force social interaction, but it rewards it. Everything is easier and more interesting with other people. Voice chat proximity adds another layer. You can hear people near you, which creates these moments of accidental eavesdropping or spontaneous conversation. You're walking through a space station and hear someone complaining about a bug, so you chime in with a solution. You're in a ship and hear someone outside asking for a ride, so you open the door. These small interactions build into relationships, and suddenly you have friends in the game without ever going through formal friend requests or party invites. The comparison to other space games is inevitable but mostly unhelpful. Elite Dangerous has better flight mechanics and more polish, but feels sterile and lonely. No Man's Sky has infinite exploration, but everything feels samey after a while. EVE Online has incredible depth, but requires spreadsheet-level commitment. X4 has complex economy simulation, but you're essentially playing a management game. Each of these does specific things better, but none of them create the same sense of presence. What makes this different isn't any single feature. It's how everything combines into something that feels like a place rather than a game. The seamless transitions from walking around a space station to flying your ship to quantum traveling to another planet to landing and getting out and exploring on foot. No loading screens, no instances, no breaks in immersion. You're just continuously existing in this universe, and that continuity matters more than you'd expect. The graphics contribute to this in ways that go beyond just looking pretty. The attention to detail in ship interiors, the way light behaves realistically, the scale of everything, it all reinforces the sense that this is a real place you're inhabiting. You're not controlling an avatar in a game world. You're embodying a person in a simulated universe. That distinction sounds pretentious, but it affects how you engage with everything. And other games are better at specific things. Better combat, better progression, better stability, better tutorials, better respect for your time. But if what you want is that feeling of existing in a science fiction universe, of being a person in a vast galaxy where anything can happen and usually does, nothing else comes close. That's the trade-off. You sacrifice polish and convenience for presence and possibility. Whether that's worth it depends entirely on what you value in games. So that's the actual situation, not the meme version where it's either a scam or the future of gaming, but the complicated reality where it's simultaneously broken and brilliant, frustrating and fascinating, a disaster and a dream. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. But if you've been curious, if you've been burnt out on the usual gaming experiences, if you miss that feeling of genuine discovery, maybe give it a shot during a free fly event. Worst case, you confirm your suspicions that it's not for you. Best case, you find something that reminds you why you loved games in the first place. Drop a comment about the last game that genuinely surprised you, not impressed you, not met your expectations, actually caught you off guard with something you didn't see coming. Curious if this is a universal feeling or just a specific type of player who's tired of the usual formulas. Thanks for sticking around through all of this, because nuance matters and this project deserves more than hot takes from people who haven't played it, or blind defense from people who've invested too much to be objective. Until then, remember that games don't have to be perfect to be meaningful. Sometimes the broken ones teach you more about what's possible than the polished ones ever could. Whether this is that game for you, Only one way to find out. See you around. Or not. Either way, fly safe out there.